Hello, and welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And this is Luca, the co-host and the film theorist of the duo. Lee, the Movie Pope, is the film critic. Hence, his title is Movie Pope because he's critical about everything. But enough about that. Today, we are starting a new series on the podcast called Thespians, where we talk to people who work in theater and drama and performance, and we go over literary and theatrical work. So this is going to be the very first episode. But as always, remember to like, comment, subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And let's dive in. Today, I have Sarah Baumgardner of the Matthews Playhouse here. You're the director. Is that it?
I am the executive and artistic director of the Playhouse. Yes.
So you're wearing two hats then, basically.
I do. I wear two very big hats. I call myself the chief plate spinner at the Playhouse.
Now that's fascinating because with a lot of the theater directors that I've interviewed over the past year, they pretty much told me the same thing, that they're doing what you're doing. They're wearing two hats because they're not only do they have to handle the creative aspect of running a theater, but they also have to manage the business aspect. And right. as anybody who works in the arts knows, I mean, whenever if you go to art school or if you attend a program or anything like that, they don't really teach you that kind of stuff.
No, that's a major part of it. I would say it's a big learning curve for sure, of trying to figure out from a business standpoint what is going to be profitable. And of course, as a nonprofit, we still have to make money, because otherwise, how do we continue to run our programs? How do we offer quality performances and classes and things for our community? But that's definitely a part of things that they don't necessarily dive into when you go to performing arts school. So it's a whole other layer of it, but I have found it to be something that I enjoy, and it's definitely an area that I feel like I continue to learn every day more about.
So let me ask you this, because because I studied film at UNC Greensboro, and during my 4 years, there was never a class that talked about this is how you write a proposal or this is how you talk to investors or anything like that. How did you hone your business skills, as it were, your admin skills, to kind of navigate this world? Because because working in the arts, especially in the business aspect, it's not for the faint-hearted.
It's a great question. So I have a degree in vocal performance. And so, of course, I was training more for concerts, productions, performances myself as a singer and an actor. And then I went to seminary, in fact, and studied about church leadership and those kinds of things. So I think a lot of my administrative side of things came from that experience, and working in those nonprofit type of environments where you're working with a board of people that are volunteers. You're working with a combination of volunteers and staff members. And honestly, it's a lot of learning from other people. I have been really fortunate to work alongside some very talented, business-minded folks who help to really guide and direct whatever organization we were both working to support, as far as decisions regarding the building or the budget or various aspects of making sure those things move forward. And then when the Playhouse position became available, I thought, well, I do have some experience in understanding at least how the nonprofit side of this works, but I didn't really have a full understanding of the business side of what would be required for the Playhouse itself. I also grew up with parents who were very organized and administratively minded. And so I'm really fortunate that I had parents who instilled that in me, but I've never taken a business class. And so I guess maybe it's the education of the hard knocks of life, if you will, of just figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work. I will say I am so fortunate that I have an amazing team of people that work with me, and we work really hard to support one another. And I could not be successful in this role if it were not for all of the amazing staff members and our volunteers that work at the Playhouse. So if I don't always make all the decisions independently, we work together to make them, which is amazing.
It kind of makes sense too, because obviously, you're not going to be an expert in everything, so you want to surround yourself with people who can, help you make that call.
That's exactly right.
So are you the first director of the Playhouse, or are you just like one out of a succession of directors of the past?
What a great question. So I'm actually only the second director of the Playhouse. I took over from the founder who created the Playhouse as a place primarily for children to be able to come and experience performing arts, both in classes as well as in productions. And she started the Playhouse and was in a small storefront in downtown Matthews, which that complex even no longer exists. They've torn it down many years ago. And it was a very successful venture. She was able to bring a lot of theater experiences to children in the community and their families. And the mayor at the time asked her if she would consider bringing on adult programming as well and providing shows for the local public to be in and to experience. And so that is where our main stage series really developed out of that desire. So we started out with really focusing on theater education and performances of children for children. And then it grew into this additional kind of wing, if you will, of the Playhouse, where we have these, we have things more geared toward adults to be in and for families and adults to come and enjoy. And so she was our founder and director for more than 25 years. And then she was ready to retire. She even saw the organization through COVID, and we were able to survive thanks to her wonderful leadership and business acumen in that time. But she was ready to retire and enjoy time with her husband and their family. And so I had been working for the Playhouse, and she approached me about taking the role. And so I just completed my third year as the executive and artistic director. So I'm only the second one in 29 years of existence.
So was that, did you feel like some sort of pressure to kind of, meet those expectations, or did you feel like, I've got this. I think I can make a pretty good work at this.
I'll tell you, Luca, I definitely had a level of imposter syndrome when I first started, just feeling like, what does this musician have to bring to this arena? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I have had successes of my own. And so I felt, I'm going to give it my best and see what happens. And we've really been able to grow significantly in just those 3 years. And I don't attribute that to my own nature. I attribute that to a couple of things. One is we have a wonderful community that is very supportive and wants to be a part of what we do. And then secondly, we have an amazing team of people that I have been instrumental in assembling, but bringing together all these different talents and skill sets in order to develop a program and productions that people want to come and see. So I don't have imposter syndrome anymore. I do feel very confident in what my skills are and what I bring to the Playhouse. But I definitely at first was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. This is a big job and a daunting task to take over.
Yeah, I mean for sure, especially when especially when you've been working in the wings for quite a while.
Yeah.
But I want to circle back to what you said earlier, because you said initially it started off as children's theater, and then yes. and then you guys began incorporating more adult oriented material, and not like skeezy adult material.
No, but things that are more for adults to participate in as well as to enjoy, for sure.
So I want to ask. So where did that come from? Did people kind of come to these shows and say, I wish you guys would do more shows that cater to adult sensibilities, or is that something that the director decided maybe it's time we expand our scope? Like how did that come about?
Sure. Well, I think at the time the mayor of the town saw a need and an opportunity, and he saw a thriving theater program with an excellent leadership base that could handle it. And so they started off small with just a handful of productions throughout the year. I think it was maybe even just one or two their first time offering more adult leaning material, and or at least shows that adults would be in. And we're talking shows like The Sound of Music or Mamma Mia,
Right.
things that certainly kids could do, but is more impactful when you have adult actors on stage. And so, and then it just grew from there. I think they had more and more interest from the community. They started developing a group of actors, directors, technicians, and people that are involved in the whole production process who really had a desire to continue to provide that for the Matthews community. And so it's just really blossomed from there. So now we're up to offering 5 of those productions every year instead of just 1 or 2. So it truly has expanded.
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, I was looking at the website and I was like, wow, you guys have a lot of shows. Like it's really impressive. So so I do want to circle back to what we were talking about before we started recording. Can you talk about like where did the Matthews Playhouse come from? How did it start? Because I know you said that you're only the second director, but do you kind of can you like talk about like how it came to be? Because for the longest time, Matthews is all, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. Matthews is just, it's us Charlotteans, we see y'all as like a suburb. You're just like another neighborhood, like Dilworth or something. So people want theater. I mean, we've got it. All you got to do is just drive to uptown Charlotte to your kicks at the Blumenthal. So why did you all decide we need something in the heart of Matthews?
Well, I think it's multi-level. So first of all, it definitely started as an opportunity to provide theater education and instruction for children in the Matthews region instead of having to drive into uptown Charlotte. Because after school programming is really tricky when you're also fighting that current of traffic that's driving in and out of the city. So why not have classes right in your backyard, closer to home, much more convenient to getting in and out, and more conducive to a family environment. But then also, there are not very many productions that Blumenthal offers that feature local actors. And so, most of the big shows that come through Blumenthal that are traveling Broadway productions, they come as a complete unit of actors and talented folks that come through as part of that traveling show. So most of the time, if you've gone to see something recent, even at Blumenthal, really recently was Hadestown. That particular production is a traveling one. So it comes through for 2 to 3 weeks, and then all of those actors leave and they travel on to the next city. So there is a need for local actors to be able to perform and to experience and to really work on their craft. And so there's a whole host of local theaters in the region that work with only local actors. And so we are one of many that the local groups can come in and participate, really build up their resume, but also for folks like you and me who have a day job but might want to still cut our teeth a little bit on some great material on stage, you have that opportunity. And you don't have to make it your full career. You can just make it a hobby, something that you enjoy, and we provide an opportunity for that.
So that's fascinating because I remember as a kid, back in the day, i.e. the 1990s, we would occasionally go on a field trip to the Children's Theater, which at that time was on Moorhead Street, and in my mind, I was like, these are like local actors. I mean, because they kept advertising the Taradiddle Players, and I'm assuming they're local actors.
So they are the one exception. So Children's Theater does work with local actors, and they have a unified audition every year. So adults and children alike can go and audition. They're one of the few professional theaters in the area that actually utilize local talent. But anything else that you see that's coming through as like a traveling Broadway production, those are all from outside of the community, typically.
So Children's Theater is the exception, not the norm, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And they have phenomenal programming, and I encourage people to go and support them and see what they're all about. But again, that is only a small amount of opportunities. Whereas if you live closer to Matthews, come and audition for us. We have opportunities too.
So that actually leads me into my next question. So what's the, I guess, for lack of a better word, what's the impetus? What's the motivation to kind of encourage local talent to contribute to the Matthews Playhouse? Because I recently had an email conversation with Amy. So shout out to Amy.
Yeah.
And she hooked me up with Charles, who's a local playwright.
Yes.
And I wanted to see, like, what are y'all doing to kind of like get these local actors and local playwrights out to, I guess provide their work for you guys to perform. How are you encouraging that?
So, I mean, for us, it's I get routine emails from local playwrights asking if we would consider their script. Would you consider what we're doing, what I've written? Would you please read it, give me feedback? And I'm always glad to read over things and consider them for our upcoming season.
So do you personally read it, or do you have like?
Oh, I do.
Read it.
Yeah, I personally read it, and then if I feel like it's something we should consider, I'll ask several other staff members to consider the work as well. We also have a Black Indigenous People of Color Playwriting Festival. So that encourages folks from those various cultural groups to be able to submit their work as well. And we will produce the winner from that particular competition, if you will.
Okay.
And so that's one area. I've been really proud of the fact that for the last 3 years that I've been in leadership, we have produced a brand new work every single year. And that's not typical for a theater of our size or even of our history. Normally, we're purchasing rights and royalties of well-known productions, and we still do plenty of that because, honestly, most patrons want to come to something they've at least heard of.
Well, like Spamalot, for instance.
Exactly. It's harder to market something that someone doesn't know anything about. And so taking that risk, while it's typically really worthwhile, is also truly a risk as well, financially particularly. So that's the playwright side.
Because in your role of wearing two hats, I mean, I can sort of imagine you on one side saying, "Wow, this is a really, really good play," but on the other side, you're also saying, "Well, if it's not going to be, if it's not going to meet our budgetary requirements, or if it's not going to make us any money, I mean, how do I tell this person maybe this year or this season isn't your season?"
Right. And unfortunately, I have to do that. I have to be the one that makes that call. And sometimes that's based on the subject matter of the show. Sometimes it's based on even the notoriety of the playwright. And so with Charles, who I think you're going to be speaking with in the next couple of days or weeks.
Yeah, in September. Yeah.
He has notoriety in the community. He helped to found Northwest School of the Arts. He also is already an award-winning playwright. And so the work that we're producing that he has written, while it is brand new and it's the first time for it to be produced, people recognize his name from some aspect of his career. And so that is an attraction as far as a business side. But also the story is so compelling that's what really drew me in to that particular show. But then, so that's the playwright side of encouragement, right? Of encouraging people to please write things and put yourself out there, because you never know who the next big name playwright or scriptwriter is going to be. And they very well may come from this region of the country. And what an amazing thing to be able to say, I knew him when.
Right.
But the same thing can be said of actors too. There are plenty of actors who are looking for more opportunities to be able to work on their craft, to hone their skills. And what better way than to continually be in a production and to be in different productions and have different experiences. And so I would encourage anyone who enjoys performing to get involved with a local theater in your region. You're very welcome to come to Matthews, but if you have a place closer to you, I encourage you to try out, do the audition or volunteer to get to know the organization a little bit better, because we need people who want to perform and share their talents with others. And I think most actors would tell you that their experiences on stage have helped to shape them both as an individual, but also to increase their skills and abilities in their business life. So one of the things we tell parents all the time, please put your kids in theater. They will learn public speaking, presentation skills, ability to collaborate with others, and working as a group, being able to read emotions and all those various aspects that only prove to serve you in your life. Theater helps with that.
Right. I mean, the thing that I find so fascinating about the local theater scene is that it's a bit more organic, really, because because as much as I love Blumenthal and what it's done for the community, I feel like it's kind of got the same vibe as what you see from like the major Hollywood studios. You know what I mean? It's like it's like with these productions, you kind of know what to expect because we've heard the story before, right?
Right.
Whereas with what you guys are providing, there's a bit more liberty, a little bit more freedom to kind of move around a bit, kind of like with the indie film scene.
Absolutely. We can put our own stamp on things, which is such a great opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I love seeing what different directors and designers bring to a show that is unique and different from what it might have been when it was originally produced somewhere else. And so it gives us an opportunity to see it in a new light. And that's such a great opportunity.
So this is something that I really enjoy asking my guests, the guests who work in theater. Can you walk me through the process of a typical season? Because the way that you guys, the way that the theater operates is obviously quite different from the way that it operates in the film and TV world, right? But it's no more or less intense than being on set and having to deal with crazy directors. So can you maybe like walk through the process from from I guess from the very beginning, whether it's pursuing the rights or approving a script to the first night of production?
Okay, sure. So we choose our season all at one time, and so because that has to be announced, and then that goes out to the community. But that process, even though it seems like it might be a short one, actually takes quite a long time. And I don't choose it alone. So I will ask board members, staff members, regular volunteers, actors, and directors that we work with. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you'd like to see. What's a show you've always wanted to be in?
Right.
What's your favorite musical or your favorite play? And I collect that information over the course of a couple of months. And then I see if there's there's some overlap. Lots of people, let's just choose Grease for an example. Lots of people said they love the musical Grease. Let's look for that. So then I'll do some research on it. What are the things I need to consider with Grease? Are there some constraints as far as how much it can be performed, or what are the age ranges that it caters to? I also look at, does it allow for diversity in casting? Are there set considerations we need to have, or lighting, those kinds of things? And so I take all of that into account. And then I also look at, of course, what's the cost for rights and royalties? Some shows that we might really love to see aren't available because they're still out touring professionally. And right. So every year someone says, I would love for you to produce Wicked. Well, so would I, but it is still out there being performed by professionals. And so it's not available for us yet.
Sorry to interrupt. So that actually leads me to another question. So let's say, for instance, you ask people around you, and they all say, "Oh yeah, I would love to see you guys do a rendition of Wicked, but but for whatever reason you're not able to do it. Do you guys have like a short list of alternatives, or
Yes.
work?
Yes. And so the other thing we consider is we'll have 4 or 5 titles for each time slot of the year. Okay. So I consider, okay, is this a show that children will be able to come to on a field trip? And so when does that fit in the season? Typically for us, that's in February and March, because more field trips happen for indoor events in the winter months than they do any other time. And so that's a timing factor too. When does school start? When does school end? When do they have spring break? And how do we select according to that? So I'll have a short list of a few titles that I want to look at for each of those time slots. We also try to juggle well-known works with lesser-known works. I also try to make sure we have somewhat of a balance between musicals and plays. That's not always as attainable as possible. Most people I've found in our community really love musicals. And so we do tend to be a little more musical heavy, but we do try to work in plays as often as we can. They're just not typically as well attended, unfortunately. And so there's a lot of factors to consider with that too. And then what is the notoriety of a show? How much do people know it? And is it something that they will want to come to time and time again? So for us, the last 2 years, and we're repeating it again this year for a 3rd year in a row, is Scrooge, the musical, at Christmas time. Right. And so it's based on the Christmas Carol story. It's sort of like how families go to see the Nutcracker Ballet year after year after year. And you know what's going to happen, but you still go to it anyway because it's tradition. And so sometimes we have to take that into account as well. So once the season is selected, then I start thinking about who I'm inviting to direct. And I normally am thinking about that as I'm choosing the shows, because I think about who are the directors we enjoy working with, what are their strengths, and what are their interests as well. And then I offer them those opportunities. So once the directing group is solidified, then we work on our other designers. So the set designer, lighting design, sound design, all of those are professionals who come in and work with us in those various aspects. And then about 3 months before the show starts, we have our initial production meeting. Before rehearsals start, I should say, we have our initial production meeting to talk about kind of expectations. We set our dates for auditions, and then it just kind of rolls on from there. So it's a lengthy process, and because we offer so many productions throughout the year, they're always overlapping with one another. So right now we are in the home stretch of Young Frankenstein, but we've already started having production meetings for One Year to Die, which will be on stage in September. Mm-hmm. And then very soon in August, we'll go ahead and already start talking about what does Scrooge look like for the Christmas season. So we're always looking at both what we're doing currently and what's coming.
And it looks like you try to have these seasons kind of be at least like 2 or 3 months apart, just to give you guys some breathing room.
We try. Unfortunately, in the winter, it's a little harder to get that amount of space. We'll go directly from Scrooge to Bright Star in January. So Scrooge is in December, Bright Star is in January.
Yeah, I see that.
Chocolate Factory's in February, and then we'll have a break. Although that break really only looks like a break, it's actually when our School of Theater productions are on stage. So that's when our children get a chance to perform. And then in the summer, we'll have Peter and the Starcatcher. So there are a little bit of some gaps in there, but we are pretty busy most of the year.
Yeah, and I was gonna say because when I've chatted with other theater directors, they've always mentioned that usually around November up until I guess late January, early February, that's like the busy season for you guys.
It is.
And it's due to a lot of factors. I know you mentioned typically, schools are on field trips during that time because it's the winter and there's really not much to do outside.
Right.
But it's also because there's just so many holidays during that time period too,
Yes.
and everybody wants to cash in on the holiday season. I know with Chris with Postmortem Players, he always likes to do his horror themed Christmas productions during that time. So that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing I wanted to ask you was how do you guys promote these productions? Because Matthews is it's a pretty small area, compared to the surrounding areas like Charlotte or Monroe or Concord. How do you guys get the word out? Say, hey, another season's coming up. We've got Scrooge coming up in December. So definitely check us out. How do you work with that?
So Amy, who you've emailed with, is our amazing marketing director. She works really diligently with developing partnerships with local media outlets. So we normally do have a few interviews on local television channels throughout the course of the year, normally a couple of weeks before a show is ready to perform. We also have a wonderful newsletter subscription base. So we have, I think it's close to 15,000 people who subscribe to our weekly newsletter. So
Wow.
They all receive that. We send out a mailer twice a year in the good old fashioned postal service method. And so you'll get a postcard to your home, and it'll tell you what the season is and all the things that are coming up for classes and camps as well. We take out routine ads in local papers, as well as we do something with other local theaters called a swap ad. So we'll put their ad in our program and they'll put our ad in their program.
Oh, so we're like reciprocity, sort of.
It is, yes.
Okay.
And I think that's something that's worth mentioning. The theater community in Charlotte is really a big family, and we all know each other and we all work together to support one another. No one is out to see anyone else fail, because if we're out to see others fail, then we're not doing what we need to do to truly make the arts successful in the Charlotte area. And so I think most everybody you would talk to would tell you, we work together in order to ensure the success of everyone. And so we even borrow props and set pieces between different theaters as well. Why go out and reinvent something or purchase something when you can borrow it from someone else? And so that's another way that we spread the word. And then last is all the social media and Google ads. We do our fair share of paying for advertising on Facebook and Instagram, as well as through Google. And so when we have a really great website that's currently being further developed, and we'll have a launch of our new site coming up later this summer. But we have lots of ways that we connect with people that way.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, because as far as I can tell, you guys are the only, I guess, theater company in the Matthews area, right?
We're the only one that does the things that we do. There are certainly smaller, more children-focused groups that produce work. Even we were talking earlier about Mint Hill. There's a small theater production company in Mint Hill called Spotlight.
I didn't know that.
There are some in Indian Trail as well. And so there are smaller ones, but they tend to focus more on classes and productions for children to be in. And they don't have necessarily the performing space that we do at the Matthews Community Center. So do they come to you if they want to put on a performance, or no? There are other stages and things in the community. You can certainly rent a local high school stage, and some of them have small stages in the space where they operate from. But we're one of the few. We are the resident theater company at the Matthews Community Center. So it doesn't mean other people can't perform there. Lots of people perform in the community center, but we're the ones that produce the majority of theater-related productions there.
So that actually leads me to the next question. So what is the theater scene like in Matthews? Because I've driven through Matthews several times, and it just looks so small. It's got the small town vibe. You would think that theater wouldn't really be a factor in Matthews, but
Sure.
it's thriving. So can you talk about what that's like, and what have you guys done to kind of cultivate interest and kind of help develop that scene?
Absolutely. So we're in our 29th year of doing theater in Matthews. And it still amazes me the number of people who don't know that Matthews has a playhouse. And so we are working really diligently to partner with other organizations and other businesses to help get the word out there. But I would say that Matthews and the town itself has worked really hard to make sure that the arts in general are being promoted throughout the community. So the town has done a great job bringing in different musical acts that occur right at Stumptown Park. Some of them are also in the Fullwood Theater in the community center. They also have a sculpture garden. They have rotating art exhibits in the community center and at the McDowell Arts Center. So there are a lot of arts-based things happening in Matthews that are being produced by the town as well as by us. And so I feel like that partnership that we have with the town is truly vital in making sure that we are successful in providing great theater for our community.
So what are your plans for the future? Because you guys started off as, as teaching classes and just doing children's productions to now, doing, productions, cater to adults. And not only that, but also starting to bring in local playwriting talent and producing their work. So where do you guys go from there?
That's a great question. I feel like so much of that is really dictated by what our community wants. And so some of the things that we're discovering that they are really excited about are things like dinner theater. So we've done 2 different dinner theater experiences in the last 2 years, hoping to bring that back again. I think really our next direction is in those types of special events. We would love to produce an outdoor Shakespeare experience.
I would love to see that.
Right? Wouldn't that be amazing? I can just imagine and visualize it over at Stumptown Park, which is right across the road from the community center. There's a nice stage there and a beautiful lawn leading up to the Veterans Memorial. And there is so much opportunity just in that space alone to be able to have some outdoor theater experiences. So I think that is what's next for us, is offering truly unique theater events and opportunities that are different from sitting in the theater in a traditional environment, but instead having theater kind of out and in the community in various ways, whether that's an outdoor show or a dinner theater or a small cabaret at a local restaurant or brewery. We've got lots of those popping up all over the area. So there's so many opportunities to bring what I've heard others call theater adjacent kind of moments, but there's still opportunities to bring performances to different spaces.
So I did an interview a few months ago with Stephanie Hickling Beckman, and she runs a collaborative in Asheville where she kind of it's sort of like a collective of different artists from different backgrounds, so like musicians, filmmakers, actors, fashion designers, kind of putting a network. Do you foresee or do you have any plans to kind of start reaching out to artists from different genres to kind of collaborate with the theater, like like indie filmmakers, for instance, or local musicians, or even people who work in photography or dabble in photography?
Sure. I love those ideas. We do work with local musicians as often as we can. So sometimes we are in a position to be able to hire musicians to play for a show. And so that is a great opportunity. And we have worked with a local arts group called Coloring on Canvas. And they provide some art-related components to our summer camps, as well as to our Haunted Trail, which is an annual event we have the last weekend of October. But I would love to look at what it might look like to bring in a filmmaker that could be sort of a combination performance that would have some film elements as well as a live component. What a cool idea. I would hope that you could get me connected with some people.
I mean, I'll definitely ask around. I will definitely talk to some people because I've interviewed a lot of a lot of filmmakers over the past year. So I mean, if I can connect you with people, I will definitely do that. I was going to say, have you heard of the Carolina film community?
I have not. No.
Okay, so basically, because I did an interview with the founder Julie Emmons a few months ago, and basically it's a collection of people who work in the film industry, and they all live in the Charlotte area, and usually the first Tuesday of every month they have a meeting at it's this brewery off Statesville Road in Uptown Charlotte. I know it's it's a bit of a drive for you, but yeah, but but I would definitely encourage you to check at least go to one of their meetings, because it's a great way to just meet new people. Julie's a great person. I can definitely put you in touch with her, because I think it would be pretty cool to kind of just collaborate and just chat with people who work in the film industry, and kind of get their expertise, and maybe collaborate with them too.
And we're starting to incorporate more and more projection into our shows as another scenic element. And so that is essentially putting video in the middle of a performance. So that would be wonderful. We also have a lot of students who ask us routinely, what is it like to be in the film industry? How do I break into it? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a stage performer. That's a totally different
about this podcast.
Yeah, I'll tell them to check it out.
Tell me about this podcast, because I have interviewed a lot of guests and have asked them that question, and it's just so fascinating to hear what their answers are, because sometimes these are answers I never expected to hear from them.
Sure.
And I'm like, really? Huh. I should have done that like 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's a lot simpler than what you think it's going to be. And one of the things I tell our students all the time, sometimes it's not what you know, but who you know. Rodney Stringfellow, he teaches screenwriting at UNC Charlotte. He used to work on Gilligan Island back in the day, and he's working on a few projects. He said the very same thing for the season 3 premiere interview episode. It's all about who you know. So another thing I want to ask you too, because like I mentioned before we started recording, there are a lot of schools in the area, and CPCC does have a satellite campus not far from you guys. Yes.
Have there been any overtures or any collaborations with local schools or colleges to kind of see what can happen?
That is something that I would like to start pursuing. We have been over and toured the Levine campus for CPCC. The Georgia Tucker Theater is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see us be able to do a performance or have a whole production occur over there. We do have a lot of CPCC students who come and participate in our productions or work for us as contractors backstage or help with scenic things or costumes. We also have several students that come down from UNC Charlotte. And then one of our directors works at both UNC Charlotte and Belmont Abbey College. And so we do have connections and ties there. But I would love to see a more formalized relationship develop out of that. To be really straight, I feel like I'm just now getting my head above the water. And so I feel like I've been breathing through a straw for the last couple of years trying to stay afloat. And I'm finally to a point now where I feel like I can reach out and have more of those connections. We do offer a wonderful intern program that's paid for our summer camp. And that's a great opportunity for theater majors and performing arts majors to come and experience what it is like to be a part of a theater for the summer and to work within that environment. And so that's been a wonderful thing to be able to offer as well. So I feel like that's our connector point that we can start to work toward more formal relationships.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is because it's just so amazing when you look at these universities and colleges, just how big their arts programs are. Yes. I know UNC Charlotte has a separate school that's devoted to the arts, everything from studio art to architecture to dance to theater. Yes. And I know CPCC does have a pretty pretty good arts program, as is Queens. Yes. I just found out recently, and then not to mention, oh God, the numerous theater groups that you see all over the area, from Rock Hill all the way up to Statesville.
Yes.
So it's just amazing to think, just how many people you could possibly reach out to and collaborate with. So you mentioned it at the very beginning, but I did want to circle back to this. So you said you started off studying vocal performance. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where Sarah Baumgardner came from and how she came to work at Matthews Playhouse?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, not Harrisburg, North Carolina. I have to be sure I clarify because Harrisburg is in multiple places.
Right.
I went to college in Virginia and studied vocal performance, and I'm a classically trained soprano. So I then went on to work on some graduate studies at Westminster Choir College, which is in Princeton, New Jersey. And I had opportunity to sing as a featured soloist with the New York Philharmonic, which was an incredible experience. And then I left that program and went into seminary in Ohio. And I lived in Ohio in the northwest part, and then as well in the greater Cleveland area. For all of our Cedar Point friends or our, what's it called here? Carowinds fans, the sister park is Cedar Point in Sandusky. We lived really close to there.
Okay.
And I worked with a children's theater that was centered at a local community college in that region for many years. And I taught private voice lessons as well as did some music directing in that area. My husband was offered a job here in Mint Hill, North Carolina. And so we moved about 8 years ago. And after about a year of living here, someone else introduced me to Matthews Playhouse. And we took a group of students. I had been working for a homeschool co-op as a teacher for them. And they said, let's go and see this show at this cute little theater called Matthews Playhouse. And I was like, okay, sounds good. Brand new to the area. I don't know anything, but let's do it. And I was so impressed with the production. The production was Freedom Train. It was a Harriet Tubman story that they were producing in February. And I picked up some information about their summer camp programs, thinking I would probably have some students who would enjoy participating. And so I was checking out their website, and I saw that they had a job posting and they needed music-oriented theater teachers. And I was like, that's me. I play 6 instruments, plus I'm a vocalist. So you don't get a whole lot more musical. And I applied and interviewed, and I got the job. And so 7 years ago this June, I started out as a summer camp teacher for Matthews Playhouse. And then my responsibilities just continued to increase from there. I was invited to be a School of Theater instructor. Then I was invited to do music direction for a show. And we had been in discussion about me coming on as the director of education right as COVID hit. So everything sort of shifted at that point, but I stayed very engaged. I learned how to direct on an environment like you and I are talking on now. I directed an entire production virtually. I learned how to teach voice lessons in this type of a format. That was interesting. We learned how to do socially distant classes as well when we could be in person. And so it was a really formative time. And then that's when the position became available to take over, essentially, or at least be the leader of this organization. And so it's been an interesting couple of years, that's for sure. But yeah, I am very fortunate and very blessed to be able to work in a career that utilizes all of my random skills, and no 2 days are ever the same. And I personally thrive in that kind of an environment. So it's been great for me.
So when you went to school to study vocal performance, did you sort of have this plan or this idea that you were going to be a performer on stage?
I really thought I would. I thought I would pursue classical music. I can sing in all the Romance languages. And so I thought I would pursue being an opera singer. And even though I'd grown up performing in regular musical theater and, of course, concerts and choral music as well, I thought that was my path, if you will. And if you'd have asked me even 15 years ago, would you ever see yourself working in this kind of a role? I honestly didn't even know that this kind of a role was a thing. I mean, I mean, I guess when you think about it as you're a performer, you think through what that other people have to lead these things, but at the same time, you don't think about it as a job. And so it was definitely a unique opportunity that I never saw coming.
Because it's funny because I had a coworker who studied vocal performance at Mars Hill, and he worked several different jobs over his lifetime, and then he recently left to go work at Children's Theater as an admin.
Okay.
So I just find it so fascinating that people who study vocal performance in particular, they have the most peculiar journeys. And I'm not saying it to be mean. It's just the path that you guys. It's just the path that you guys take. It's just so eccentric because out of all the arts groups, whether it's painters or filmmakers or actors, yours is the most circuitous.
I think you're exactly right. I don't know anybody that went into vocal performance that hasn't done some sort of interesting host of other jobs or has found themselves truly in whatever their calling is. But we're all still singing. And that's the thing that's so cool to me, is that of all the people that I went through school with and even graduate school, they're all doing different unique jobs, but we're all still singing. And that's awesome.
So I have to ask, so you started off studying, vocal performance, right? Mm-hmm. And you wanted to sing opera at one point. How did you make the leap to divinity school?
So I grew up in the church. My dad is a pastor, and I was singing. I was a paid choir member for a local church choir, mm-hmm. And there were other people who were paid as well. There was a quartet of us, so soprano, alto, tenor, and baritone. Right, and we would often ride together in order to go to rehearsal as well as in for Sunday services. And on our drives, the others would ask me questions about, well, I heard the pastor say this. And these were people that hadn't necessarily grown up going to church or in any kind of a faith tradition. And so they just had genuine questions like, what does this mean? And where does this go from here? And well, what does that mean for me? And so we started having all of these really wonderful discussions. And I realized that there was such a unique opportunity to really minister to people where they were and to say, I'm not judging you. I'm just here to show you that God loves you. And that really developed into helping me to discern my call into ministry. And so I was one of 2 women in the entire seminary.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And and they would come around the circle, in introductions during the first class or whatever, and they would say, well, tell us about your background and what brought you here. And my answer was always, look, I'm a classically trained opera singer, and I'm here because God said I should be. And people were like, what do I do with that? Everybody else was like, well, I studied youth ministry, or my undergraduate degree is in Bible, or this or whatever. And I was like, I don't have any of those degrees. I'm just here because I know I'm supposed to be here. So I completed my seminary education. I have a master's of divinity. And so I that includes reading in ancient Greek and Hebrew and all of the details oriented with that. Yeah. And I served in the church for many years. I'm an ordained pastor. I still maintain my ordination. And I mainly served as a music minister. Big surprise, right? I mean, this musician, you might as well utilize her skills. So I've led choirs and handbell groups. I've conducted big cantatas and musicals for the church. And so I really feel like that has gone hand in hand with my current role, to be able to still continue to respect people, to appreciate their journey, to help them recognize that they are needed in our community, that every person has a place, And that's something that's really important to me about how we run the Playhouse, is that every single person who comes through, whether they're a student, an actor, they work for us, or they're just coming to see a show, that everyone there knows that we value them and we want them to be a part of the stories that we're telling. And I feel like that truly does come from my ministry background, that it's something that I have a passion for people, and I want them to share their stories and to share what makes them passionate in this world. And that to me is just an incredible gift we're able to give.
I mean, in a way, you're still ministering. You're just doing it in a different capacity.
Absolutely. And I truly believe that it's, a lot of people have said, well, Sarah, don't you miss being in church ministry? And I'm still very involved in a local congregation, and I sing in the choir. I'm no longer paid to sing in the choir. I just sing because I want to.
It's pro bono.
It's pro bono this time. But at the same time, it's truly a way for me to be able to show love and care for others that are around me in a way that maybe they would never experience otherwise.
Well, Sarah, I mean, it was such a pleasure talking to you, and I feel like I can go on for hours and hours, but I do want to be respectful of our time here. Sure. But before we sign off, if people want to learn more about Matthews Playhouse or about your work, where can they go?
So they just visit MatthewsPlayhouse.com, and it is Matthews, so it sounds like plural Matthew, MatthewsPlayhouse.com. Or you can find us on all the social media channels. We're all over Facebook, Instagram, even some TikTok opportunities. And then please come see us in downtown Matthews. We're in the community center. We love having our home there, and we consider the Fullwood Theater to be truly our home, and we'd love for you all to come and join us for a show. Excellent.
So before we sign off, I have to ask, is there a movie or TV show that you really, really love that you just want to give a shout out to?
My favorite movie of all time is The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. My favorite. It's my make myself happy movie. I laugh. It's just hilarious. Hank Azaria is in it. There's so many great actors, and it's a feel good movie for sure.
I mean, I had no idea it was based on a French film from the 1970s.
Yes,
La Cage aux Folles. And I was and I was watching there's a video on YouTube where they were doing a scene by scene comparison, and they were comparing the scene where Armand tries to teach Albert how to act like a man.
Right, that's the best scene. There's so many great scenes, but it's one of my. I would say my second favorite is Willy Wonka, the Gene Wilder version. That's my other childhood favorite movie. So.
Yeah, and we did a trailer reaction to Wonka a few months ago, and my co-host and I, we both agreed, why would you try to remake this when you already have a classic at your disposal?
But I felt like the new one had nice nods to the original, and I certainly appreciated this newer one more than I did the Johnny Depp version.
The Johnny Depp version was kind of creepy. I'm not going to lie to you.
Burton, so what do we expect?
Yeah, but even then, because even with Tim Burton films, there's a bit of levity, in those films. But this one, and this and mind you, this was made roughly around the time Michael Jackson had his little thing going on. Yes. So that's what made it even more awkward.
Yes. Well, Luca, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show, and
absolutely
look forward to seeing where your next guest takes you, and it was an honor to be a part of it. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.